name is Khalil Thompson. I'm 37 years old, and I'm an ESRD survivor. I was born with PUV, posterior urethral valves, which caused a blockage in my penis and destroyed my kidney, or at least one of my kidneys. I was fortunate enough to be born with one kidney, and when I was younger, when I was a baby, they told my mother, you know, expect for his kidney to, you know, be fell to reject on him at 12. So, you know, as life goes on, my kidney, you know, fails on me at 12. But I want to go back. It failed on me at camp, and the funny thing is, the camp, it happened at Camp Holiday Trails down in Virginia, at the St. Christopher's Hospital, the hospital that I went to through that camp, and it was marvelous. St. Chris, one of the best hospitals ever to me. It really took care of me and my family. It really taught me a lot as a patient, you know, from a young age when I was diagnosed. So, you know, salute to that team back in the early 90s, late 80s, that really took care of me and really supported me and taught me what I know now. But, you know, this the same St. Chris promoted this camp for kids that had kidney transplants, like heart transplants and those kind of things, those kind of illnesses. And what was fortunate for me is that at the time, a lot of the kids that went to the camp already, you know, experienced a transplant when they was younger, or, you know what I'm saying? And my kidney didn't fail when I first started camp. I started camp in like, I want to say like 9-6, I was like 9. So I went from like 9 to about 12, so I went a good 3 years. So my first year at camp, my kidneys was fine, so I was able to go to the camp just on the strength. They knew it was going to happen in the future. So I basically got there early, because, you know, I remember some of my camp members, they would ask me, did you ever transplant? And all these kind of questions. And I kind of was like, no. And they was like, well, how you get to the camp this early? And I was kind of confused. They knew they'd been through it a little bit more. I was going through it, but because they had transplant, they was more like up on the game. So, you know, like I said, as those, you know, years went by, and camp and all those things, and life growing up in the 90s, which was fun, which I think is the best music, best times, best cartoons, best TV shows. But, you know, fast forward to 12 years old, of course, at camp, it was one day we was in a pavilion, and I can't remember if it was a contest or, cause we had a lot of like talent shows and kind of things in the pavilion. So I don't know what was going on in the pavilion at the time, but I remember being like in the grass area and playing around, and I remember my toe cramping up on me. And the funny thing about my toe cramping up on me, I was used to that by now. But my toes, like, and my fingers like cramping up on me. So I would just, like, you know, try to push it back in place when I was younger in my toes, and it would be fine after a while. But with this particular cramp, it seemed like when it cramped, I lost control of my body, which, come to find out now, it was a seizure, but I just went into a seizure, but I can stop it. If I stop my toe from cramping, then the seizure will stop. But if I let it go, so just imagine, you know, a 12-year-old at that time having to make a decision. Like, damn, do I just let my toe cramp, or don't I? Like, I don't know. So, you know, at that time, honestly, I made the decision, like, I gotta see where this take me. Like I kind of knew I had like a sickness. I didn't know how serious it was, but I knew I had a sickness, an illness, I should say, and I know I've been through some stuff up until that time, you know, catheters put in me and all that kind of stuff. So I've been through that kind of stuff, X-rays, and, you know, going through in and out of hospital for certain situations. So I've been through that kind of stuff, but I never experienced this. So, you know, I just let it cramp, and sure enough, I went into a seizure. And, you know, when I was younger, I kind of grew out of it. I'm getting back into it now. I'm gonna try to get back into it. But when I was younger, I used to joke and play, and, you know, always act and do all those kind of things. So, you know, the counselors and everybody and the kids thought I was actually playing, because I was just shaking on the floor. And, you know, I probably did that one time, you know, getting shot one time, boom, and just, you know, shake on the floor and have a seizure. So, you know, people might have thought I was just playing. But, you know, I guess as time went on, it wasn't, you know, I wasn't playing. So, you know, the next thing I remember, I woke up in the med corner, which was where the nurses and everybody be to give out the medications and all that kind of stuff that we need. So I remember being in a bunk bed in the med corner, but the room was dark. The room was dark, and I could barely move. It really felt like I was lifeless. But, you know, something in me gave me the strength, and I was walking. I was like walking slow, like almost sliding. Not even walking, just sliding to the door and out to the, you know, to the nurses area. So, you know, I remember getting there, you know, and I remember them putting me on the phone with my mother, and my mother was, you know, Khalil, are you okay? Like, what's wrong with you? Tell me what's wrong with you. And I could barely talk. Like, I could barely talk. So I don't remember my mom, like, crying. I just remember her trying to, like, what's wrong with you? Like, then, you know, I remember her getting back on the phone with them. And then next thing I know, I was in the hospital. It was like the ambulance came and got me, and I was in the hospital. And it was a hospital down in Virginia. I believe it was Hamilton, Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. I believe that's where Camp Holiday Trails was, in Hamilton, Virginia, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, that's where my mom found out too, which she was kind of, I'm gonna say she was prepared for, because, you know, they told her when I was just born, you know, so this about 10, 11 years later, like, it's actually happening now. So, you know, we got the news. I remember Virginia, and I remember my mom coming down there with cousin Vanessa and her boyfriend at the time, and I remember my grandma coming down there with, I forget who my grandma came down with, and my pop, and they all packed up in the van and came down and got me, because I think they asked me that I want a helicopter back home. I was like, nah, I ain't. I really just take that trip back home and ride. And I was up in the van. But yeah, that was real scary. That was a real scary situation. So, you know, now that I found out I got to be on dialysis, or have a transplant, I go, when I get back to Philadelphia, of course, you know, I get on dialysis, and, you know, like I said, I want to shout out the whole dialysis team. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All the ladies and the men that helped me. When did I go? 99? From 99 to 2000. Thank you. You ladies know who you are. I don't want to put your names out there, but you know who you are. Thank y'all, and I appreciate the love. And all the love from the patients to all that. I remember the patients. Remember it was two girls over there. They was like in high school. It was two older girls. They was in high school, and I was bad, so they used to call me badass boy. The badass boy, cause I was bad as hell. And yeah, I remember them. They was cool. They was both cool, cause I was, cause they was older, so they used to grind me up for being bad all the time. Cause I had issues. I remember having to, you know, the cool thing about dialysis being a kid is, you know, they cater to you. You get the PlayStations and all the games, get to bring the games in and do all that kind of stuff. You know, like the social workers and all that, they come play with you and play games. They had, what else? You kind of spoiled. Like you spoiled. So dialysis, my as a kid was kind of fast because it was only a year. You tend to get a kidney faster when you're a kid, and it was only a year, so it was 99 or 2000. But I remember the first time I got the needle, I screamed I thought that was the biggest needle in the world. And I remember, you know, getting that in my arm, and I got used to it though, cause I would use a cream. It was it was funny having to leave school every day. Every other day to go to dialysis, and people would ask you where you been at, where you going, and all that. So that was kind of funny and awkward, but you know, it was my life, and I enjoyed it because I still got love. I was very spoiled. I was really spoiled by my family, and you know, the hospital team. You know, they came right along, and as a kid, they just spoiled and spoiled me. So you know, I thank God for the family that I have. You know, so, and that's as dialysis patients, that's what we should do. Try to thank God for what we got. Even though we don't have our kidneys, you know, we can still thank God is a machine that has an artificial dialyzer that can, you know, keep you alive. So those little things, but and those same little things I learned at a young age because I've been through so much. Because I was a little fighter in the beginning, you know, coming up had to be tough, and then I was the oldest with a sickness, so I had to be extra tough. You feel what I'm saying? When, you know, I had to make a decision, like, you know, as a kid, as an early age, like, you know, it's called hit back too. You got an area in your body where that can cause you your life. So you had to, you know, it was a civil war as a kid, and I didn't, you know, realize until I got older how much, you know, therapy I needed. You know, therapy just from childhood. And I, you know, as a kid, it was kind of, because I was born with it, it became normal. Hospitals and all those kind of things became normal to me. And they became normal and became a lifestyle at an early age. So I learned I learned at an early age to have patience. Like I remember being real patient as a kid, and I kind of lost patience as an adult, and that's what I'm definitely trying to get better with. But as a kid, I had a lot of patience. I was really patient, really patient with, because I understood they was only there to help me. They was only there to help me at the end of the day. When it's all said and done, that's like going mess with Miss Kim and them. I'm not talking foul to Miss Kim and them who cooking my food. Knowing I come to Miss Kim's wok every other day. Come on now, I can't be cursing Miss Kim out, and she cooking my food. So that's just how I looked at it. I can't be, even though as a kid, I still had the kid, still had to be a kid, but I still was raised a certain way, and I wasn't, disrespectful, and I wasn't, or I should say, I was bad. Don't get me wrong, and they understood as a kid going through what you're going through, but at the same time, I was really patient, and especially going in those hospitals and being in those, I was really patient and really tried to work and understand, and that's just due to St. Christopher's. St. Christopher's just really prepared me, and they were patient with my mother, and they prepared us for life, what was going on, and I needed, because it was me going through it as a kid. I had to understand, and Mom made sure. I remember going to treatments, going to appointments, I should say, with moms. Moms don't like to be talked to certain kind of ways, so with certain nurses and doctors, you know how Mom is. So it was a blessing though. I look at my my illness or my disease as a gift of life. As a gift of life. And that's why I'm here now, expressing how I feel, and my stories on end stage renal disease and how important this matter needs to be talked about. So, now when I get my transplant, which was a year later, that was dope, because I went from not being able to swim because I had a catheter. Well, I'm sorry, I wound up getting access so I could swim, but I wound up not having to go to dialysis no more. That was the best part, not having to go to dialysis no more. And I did feel like a new kid. I remember saying that. I remember, feel like a new kid. Like I feel like a new kid again. I feel like a kid again. And it was I didn't I'm not gonna say I got a lot to say, but I just know I was, grateful in my own little way, understanding what I've been through, and understanding, like, thank God I don't have to, I'm good, but also understanding, but still understanding how serious my illness is. So, going into those teenage years, so as I hit those teenage years when I had my transplant, all the way until, my second stint on dialysis, was a good 15 years. I held that kidney for 15 years, which I was proud to do. I'm glad I did that. Salute. I held that for 15 years. That's a good, that's a life expectancy for a kidney, 15 to 20 years, depending on how good you take care of it, how you switch your diet and you live. But I held it for a good 15 years, and it was those 15 years, God, thank you. And I thank him, because those 15 years were vital. There was my teenage years, so I couldn't be all on going back and forth to dialysis all in high school. That would have been drawn. That would have been in the way. I'm trying to tell you, that would have been drawn in the way. That would have been in the way. So I thank God that I have the experience go in dialysis, actually being in high school. Now, the worst I got it was in high school was when I had acute rejection. I just had acute rejection, and I had to be in the hospital for a little bit. They made sure I was cool, and you know, I came back to school. It was like 2 weeks. It might have been like more than 2 weeks. It might have been like a little month. Cause, you know, St. Chris, they gonna make sure I'm cool. Like before like they gonna make sure, cause I was still going to St. Chris. They gonna make sure, like St. Chris, they took care of me. They made sure I was cool. Make sure, all right, this just was a minor rejection. You cool. Your kidney's good. You fine. So up until 28, you know, I held that, and during that time, I had my baby girl Zoe. I love you, boo. Yeah, she was born, and so by the time I went on back on dialysis, that's when I can give a little bit more detail, because I was now I'm 28, I'm grown, and I understand more, and I got a daughter, and life is different. So now I'm 28, back on dialysis. You know, it was very depressing, and that's what this channel is about, to really come together with a community of, you know, dialysis patients, family members, and healthcare workers, to talk about, you know, patients on dialysis and how serious it is, and not falling into depression when it's so much on a dialysis patient. It's a lot that we have to, you know, take on, not just, you know, set aside just our, you know, our bodies, what our body's going through, scars, mental, diet, just lifestyle. Put that to the side for a minute. Think about the healthcare side that's making all this money, and we looked at as, you know, cases. So mix all that on a dialysis patient. That's a lot, and that's why my channel, and this is who my channel is for. It's for dialysis patients, because it, you know, dialysis patients, we feel like we have no voice. We feel like we have no voice, and it's a lot of healthcare professionals out there that do their best to take care of dialysis patient, but they'll be stuck between a rock and a hard spot, in a hard place, between the company regulations and, you know, what's really going on with life and what they're really dealing with. So it's really, you know, deep. It's really deep, and it's a serious situation, because dialysis, kidney disease is, you know, just like obesity, diabetes, and hypertension. They're epidemics out here in this country. Kidney disease, the reason you're on a dialysis machine, 9 times out of 10, it's not every reason, all reasons, but 9 times out of 10 is what you eating, and which that causes diabetes, sugar, and hypertension, which is salt, sodium. So at this point, kidney disease is an epidemic. It's an epidemic, man. So this is not only for dialysis patients, this is a public service announcement for everybody out there. You have to watch what you eat. Kidney disease is real. You can find yourself 1 minute, kidneys working, and the next minute you're gonna have to depend on the dialysis machine. And one thing about dialysis, it tests your spirit and it tests you mentally. And everybody ain't built mentally and physically, spiritually, I'm sorry, to handle, you know, some of the pressures dialysis brings. And then once you feel like you're just another case, so when I had to go back on dialysis, I was very depressed. I was in a sunken place. You know, just, you know, it was heartbreaking to lose my kidney. It was heartbreaking. It broke my heart. It broke my heart. But, you know, at the same time, I knew, you know, I've been through this, you know, even if it was a kid, you know, you still been tested with this dialysis thing. And the good thing is you've been tested as a kid. So what I could always have done, and I did at times, was look back at my old self as a kid and be like, okay, you did it. I'm grown now. I can do it. And, you know, not in therapy, understanding mentally first that I have to, that my body's going to change. I'm going to look different, even though, you know, I understood this because I had markings on my body as a kid, but, you know, now when you're an adult now, so, you know, it's different when you're an adult and as a man out here. So the foods you're not going to like, just the, you know, the mental game is going to play. So one of the things I suggest is, you know, especially, you know, if you find yourself like in a hospital where like you passed out and you had a seizure like I did, and you find yourself wake up in the hospital, while you're in the hospital, really, you know, take that time for no judgment at all. You know, the digest and accept what's going on. You know, the digest and accept what's going on. And one of the things I would just say in life in general, but especially for that machine, is when you alone, you know, sometimes, because you know, everybody ain't gonna have visitors 24/7, but you know, maybe some people do. But you know, hospitals sometimes, a lot of times, for isolation too, where you get to isolate and be with yourself. And you know, it's not the same, but I kind of compare it to being in dialysis, to being in prison. Meaning, when you're in prison, you're sat down, you can't move. So a lot of stuff, boom, is gonna hit you. The same thing with dialysis. Yeah, you moving out here, but your lifestyle is different when you rely on a machine to keep you alive. Like, that's a whole different, yeah, you still moving out here, but when you rely on a machine to keep you alive, it's a different movement. Even with you out here being in life, not behind a cage. So I kind of compare it to that, where, you know, you're gonna feel isolated. You're gonna feel isolated, or you're gonna even want to isolate yourself. And you know, as a dialysis patient, it's good to you know, isolate yourself, but not isolate yourself where you just isolate yourself from the world. Isolate yourself meaning for the right reasons. Like, you know, all right, I'm going through dialysis. I gotta really, you know, cocoon myself to turn myself into this butterfly. That's a whole different isolation. And that's the isolation I'm talking about. It's more the isolation of turning into that butterfly, getting in that cocoon and turning into that butterfly. So that means mentally digesting a lot of things, because it's going to be a good journey that you're going to be on. And it's up to you as the patient, whether it's going to be a good journey or a bad journey. And, you know, back on dialysis at 28 and having a daughter and life being different, that just hit me, boom. And, you know, mentally I couldn't, you know, deal with it at times. Mentally I couldn't deal with it at times. You know, it was at one point I wasn't even on the transplant list. And, you know, that's not even good to say.